The photo on Richard's phone is unmistakable. His wife on the balcony, wrapped in the arms of both trainers. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" he shouts. Isabel's hands shake, her perfect life crumbling, but the truth burns hotter than shame. She's not sorry. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. The crystal decanter shattered against marble, red wine spreading like blood across white stone. Celeste didn't flinch as Lord Damien Blackwood's rage echoed through the grand hall. 3 months working in the vampire estate, and she'd learned that stillness kept you alive. Movement drew predators. Incompetent human filth. Damien's voice was silk over steel as he circled her. His pale fingers traced the air near her throat, never quite touching. "You spill a single drop on priceless tapestries and think a curtsy will suffice? Forgive me, my lord." Celeste kept her eyes down, blonde hair falling forward to hide the heat creeping up her neck. At 23, she was older than most maids lasted here, older and still untouched in ways that made the other servants whisper. Virgin blood was rare. Virgin blood in a vampire household was practically mythical. "Forgiveness," Damien laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Perhaps the masters will be more understanding when they return from Vienna. Perhaps they'll find your clumsiness charming." The masters. Celeste's stomach clenched. Everyone spoke of the Ashford twins in hushed tones. Marcus and Matthias, the ancient ones who owned this sprawling estate. Brothers who'd ruled the vampire court for 6 centuries with ruthless efficiency and appetites that made even other immortals nervous. They'd been gone for 3 months. The entire staff had relaxed in their absence, Damien included. But tomorrow they returned, and Celeste would serve them directly. Head housekeeper's orders. "Clean this mess," Damien dismissed her with a wave. "And pray the masters are in a generous mood when they see you." Celeste worked through the night, scrubbing wine from ancient stone until her hands were raw. The estate was massive, a Gothic masterpiece of towers and shadows perched on a cliff overlooking the sea. 50 rooms, most of them locked. Staff quarters in the basement where sunlight never reached. And everywhere, the feeling of being watched. She finished as dawn broke, pink light creeping through stained glass windows. The other maids were rising, preparing breakfast no one would eat. Vampires didn't need food. They kept a kitchen for appearances, for the handful of human servants they employed. "Heard you're serving the masters tonight," Margot, another maid, whispered as they changed linens in the east wing. She was older, 40 perhaps, with knowing eyes. "Lucky you." "Lucky?" Celeste's hands trembled as she smoothed silk sheets across a bed larger than her entire room. "They prefer young blood. Fresh blood." Margot's voice dropped lower. "Virgins especially. Something about the taste, the purity, makes them intense." Heat flooded Celeste's face. "They wouldn't they?" Margot tied off a pillowcase with practiced efficiency. "You signed the contract, girl. Room, board, and your service in exchange for protection and gold. What did you think service meant?" Celeste had been desperate when she'd taken this position. Her village destroyed by raiders, her family dead, nowhere else to go. The vampire estate offered safety that human lands couldn't guarantee. She'd signed without reading the fine print. "They can't force me," she said, but her voice wavered. "No, but they can make you want it." Margot's expression softened slightly. "The masters aren't cruel, Celeste. Demanding, yes. Particular about what they like. But if you please them, if you give them what they need, you'll be protected here. Treasured even. And if I don't?" Margot didn't answer. She didn't need to. That evening, Celeste stood before the massive double doors of the master's private wing, wearing the formal serving uniform. Black dress that hugged her curves, white apron starched stiff, hair pinned back to expose her neck. The uniform left nothing to imagination, designed specifically to display the servants to best advantage. The doors opened without her knocking. Magic, probably. Everything in this cursed place ran on magic. The room beyond stole her breath. It was enormous, all dark wood and burgundy velvet. A fireplace large enough to stand and dominated one wall. Books lined another from floor to ceiling, and in the center, 2 massive chairs positioned like thrones. In those chairs sat the masters. Marcus and Matthias Ashford were identical in the way that nightmares were identical. Both stood well over 6 feet, broad-shouldered and muscled in ways that shouldn't be possible after centuries of undeath. But where most vampires grew gaunt and pale, the twins radiated power, their bodies honed weapons wrapped in expensive suits. Marcus wore midnight blue, his dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved by a master sculptor. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, lips that curved with perpetual amusement. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, and they tracked Celeste's every movement as she entered. Matthias dressed in charcoal gray, his hair slightly longer, falling across his forehead in a way that softened his features minimally, but his eyes were harder than his brother's, ice blue and assessing. Where Marcus looked amused, Matthias looked hungry. The new girl, Marcus's voice was smooth whiskey, the kind that burned going down. Damien mentioned you, said you were clumsy. I apologize, Master. I'll do better. Celeste curtsied, keeping her eyes down. Look at us when we speak to you. Matthias's command cut through the air like a whip. She raised her eyes. Mistake. The moment their gazes locked, she felt it. A pull. Magnetic. And terrifying, that made her breath catch and her knees weaken. This was compulsion, the legendary vampire ability to bend wills, but it was subtle, not forcing obedience, just making her want to please them. Better. Matthias smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. What's your name? Celeste, Master. Celeste. Marcus rolled her name around like he was tasting it. Celestial. Heavenly. Rather ironic for a girl serving demons. We're not demons, brother. Matthias stood, moving toward her with liquid grace. Merely evolved. He circled her slowly. Celeste felt his gaze like a physical touch, moving over her body, cataloging every curve, every vulnerable spot. Her skin prickled with awareness, heat pooling low in her belly despite her fear. Virgin, Matthias announced. I can smell it on her. Pure blood, untainted by mortal fumbling. Marcus rose as well, approaching from the other side until she was caught between them. How rare, how delicious. I'm here to serve dinner, Masters. Celeste's voice came out breathy, uncertain. What would you like? What would we like? Marcus laughed, the sound rich and dark. That's quite the loaded question, little one. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along her jaw. She should pull away. Every instinct screamed danger. Instead, she found herself leaning into the touch, chasing the coolness of his skin against her flushed face. We've been traveling for months, Matthias said from behind her, his breath cold on her neck. Meeting with other houses, negotiating treaties, playing politics with creatures who'd see us dead if they had the chance. Exhausting, Marcus agreed, his thumb brushing her lower lip. We need to relax, to feed, to play. I can bring blood, Celeste managed, fresh from the stores. Bottled blood. Matthias's nose traced the shell of her ear, making her shiver. Cold, lifeless, boring. We prefer ours warm, willing. Terrified. His teeth grazed her earlobe, not breaking skin, just a promise. Celeste gasped, her hands coming up to grip Marcus's wrist as her knees finally gave out. Marcus caught her easily, one arm around her waist, pulling her against his solid chest. Easy, love. We won't hurt you, not unless you want us to. I don't. But her body betrayed her, arching into his hold, seeking more contact. Liar. Matthias pressed against her back, sandwiching her between their large bodies. Your heart is racing. Your pupils are dilated. You're aroused and afraid and so curious about what we'd do to you. He was right. God help her, he was right. Celeste had never been touched by a man, had never wanted to be. The village boys had been crude and clumsy. But this, being held between two ancient predators who looked at her like she was something precious and edible, made her feel things she'd never imagined. We could show you, Marcus murmured against her temple. Everything you've been missing, every pleasure your virgin body has never experienced. We could make you scream, Matthias added, his hand sliding down her arm, raising goosebumps. Make you beg, make you forget every reason you came here except us. Celeste whimpered, a small sound she couldn't contain. Want warred with terror in her chest. They were vampires, monsters, and she was just a maid, disposable and weak. But we won't. Marcus released her suddenly, stepping back. Not tonight. Matthias pulled away as well, and Celeste nearly collapsed without their support. She caught herself on the back of a chair, breathing hard, her entire body thrumming with unfulfilled need. What? You're not ready. Marcus returned to his throne, his expression unreadable. You're aroused, yes, but also terrified. We don't take unwilling partners, Celeste. It ruins the taste. Consider this your warning, Matthias said, settling back into his own chair. We want you. We will have you. But when we do, you'll come to us willingly, begging us to touch you, desperate for everything we can give. Until then, Marcus smiled, you'll serve us dinner, bottled blood, since you insist, and you'll think about tonight, about how good it felt to be pressed between us, about how much better it could be if you stopped fighting what you want. Celeste fled to the kitchens on shaking legs, their laughter following her like smoke. Over the following week, Celeste's life became a delicious torture. She served the masters every evening, bringing them their blood in crystal glasses, straightening their rooms, attending to their every need. And every evening, they pushed her boundaries a little further. Marcus would catch her hand as she poured his drink, his thumb stroking circles on her wrist while maintaining eye contact. The touch was innocent but felt obscene, making heat pool between her thighs. Matthias would stand too close when she adjusted curtains, his body a solid wall of muscle at her back. She could feel his strength, the leashed violence in every movement, and it should have terrified her. Instead, it made her ache. They never touched her inappropriately, never crossed the line into actual assault, but the threat of it, the promise, hung in the air like perfume. They were grooming her, she realized, teaching her body to crave their attention, to seek their touch. And it was working. Celeste found herself taking extra care with her appearance before evening service, pinning her hair to show more neck, adjusting her uniform to emphasize her curves, applying a touch of rouge to her lips. Small things that made the twins smile knowingly. You're thinking about us, Marcus observed one evening as she set down his glass. When you're alone in your little room, what do you imagine, Celeste? She shouldn't answer, but her tongue moved without permission. Your hands on me. Where? Matthias pressed. Everywhere. The confession hung between them. Marcus's smile turned sharp. Show us. Master, show us where you want to be touched. His voice was pure command, layered with enough compulsion that refusal felt impossible. Celeste's hand moved to her throat, fingers trembling against her pulse point. Here. Good girl. Where else? Her hand drifted lower, skimming over her collarbone, the swell of her chest visible above her uniform's neckline. She stopped, hesitating. Don't be shy, Matthias encouraged. We've seen it all, love. Nothing you show us will shock or disgust. We want to know what you need. She cupped her chest through the fabric, feeling her peak harden against her palm. Here. And? Her hand traveled lower, over her ribs, her stomach stopping at the apex of her thighs. She couldn't say it, couldn't voice the aching emptiness she felt there. There, Marcus finished for her. You want us to touch your virgin entrance, make you wet and wanting and desperate. Celeste nodded, beyond words, beyond shame. Soon, he promised, when you ask us properly, when you beg. That night, alone in her narrow bed, Celeste touched herself for the first time in her life. Her hand slipped beneath her nightgown, finding the place that ached. She was slick, swollen, sensitive in ways she'd never experienced. As her fingers moved in tentative circles, she imagined it was them, Marcus's clever hands and Matthias's knowing touch working in tandem to drive her mad. The pleasure built slowly, then all at once. She bit her pillow to muffle her cry as waves of sensation crashed through her. In the aftermath, gasping and trembling, she felt shame creep in, but also satisfaction and hunger for more than her own inexperienced fingers could provide. The twins knew, of course they knew. The next evening, Marcus greeted her with a wicked smile. Sleep well, Celeste? Yes, master. Liar. We could hear you. These walls carry sound beautifully when you know how to listen. He leaned forward. Tell me, did you imagine it was us touching you, making you sigh and moan and finally shatter? Her silence was answer enough. Next time, Matthias said casually, as if discussing the weather, don't muffle yourself. We want to hear every sound you make, every gasp and whimper and scream. There won't be a next time, Celeste said, trying to salvage some dignity. It was improper. Improper, Marcus laughed. Little one, you live in a vampire's home. We've done things that would make your innocent mind shatter. Your private pleasure is the least improper thing that's happened under this roof. Besides, Matthias added, you'll do it again tonight, and tomorrow, and every night until you finally admit you want more than your own fingers. Until you come to us, spread yourself on our bed, and beg us to ruin you properly. He was right. That night, and the next, and the next. Celeste touched herself thinking of them. Each time the pleasure was sharper, but less satisfying. Her body knew it was practice for something better, something more. 2 weeks after the twins' return, Celeste made her choice. She finished her evening duties early, then instead of returning to the servants' quarters, she climbed the stairs to the master's wing, her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst. She wore only her nightgown, thin white cotton that left little to imagination in the candlelight. The doors opened before she reached them. Marcus stood there, bare-chested in silk pants that hung low on his hips. Behind him, she glimpsed Matthias rising from a chair, equally undressed, his muscled torso covered in old scars that spoke of centuries of violence. Well, Marcus's smile was pure sin. Look what wandered to our door. Celeste's voice failed her. She swallowed and tried again. I want. Use your words, love. Matthias moved closer, and together they filled the doorway, towering over her, blocking out the world beyond. Tell us exactly what you want. I want you to touch me. The words rushed out in a breathless confession. Both of you. I want to know what it feels like. I want you to teach me everything. Everything? Marcus's hand came up, cupping her face. His thumb traced her bottom lip, pressing gently until her mouth opened. That's a dangerous request. We've had centuries to develop very particular tastes. I don't care. I'm tired of wanting, tired of aching, tired of being afraid. She looked between them, seeing hunger flare in their eyes. Please, show me. Such pretty manners. Matthias's hand tangled in her hair, tilting her head back to expose her throat. We'll enjoy breaking them. They pulled her inside, and the doors closed behind her with a finality that should have terrified her. Instead, Celeste felt only anticipation as they led her deeper into their domain, toward the massive bed that dominated the back chamber, toward everything she'd been afraid to want. Last chance to run, Marcus said, but his hands were already working the ties of her nightgown. Once we start, we won't stop until you're ruined for any other man, until your body knows only our touch, craves only our pleasure. I'm already ruined, Celeste whispered. From the moment you looked at me, I was lost. Perfect answer. Matthias claimed her mouth in a kiss that was nothing like she'd imagined. It wasn't gentle or sweet. It was consuming, demanding, his tongue invading and conquering while his hands gripped her hips hard enough to bruise. She gasped into his mouth, overwhelmed, and Marcus took the opportunity to slide her nightgown off her shoulders. Cool air hit her heated skin as the fabric pooled at her feet, leaving her completely exposed. Gods, Marcus breathed. His hands traced her body, learning every curve. You're perfect, untouched, all ours. Matthias released her mouth, his lips trailing down her jaw to her throat. She felt the scrape of fangs, a warning and a promise. We're going to devour you, little Celeste. Every inch of skin, every drop of pleasure, every scream we can wring from your virgin body. They lifted her easily between them, carrying her to the bed like she weighed nothing. The silk sheets were cool against her back as they laid her down, positioning her in the center while they knelt on either side. For a moment they just looked, two predators admiring their prey. The weight of their gazes made Celeste's skin burn, made her want to cover herself. But Marcus caught her hands when she tried. No hiding. We want to see everything. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her palm, her wrist, the sensitive inside of her elbow. Every blush, every tremor, every sign of how much you want this. Matthias mirrored his brother on her other side, his mouth tracing patterns up her arm, while his free hand splayed across her stomach. You're going to learn so much tonight. How to take pleasure, how to give it, how to surrender completely while staying gloriously present for every sensation. Their hands began to wander. Marcus cupped her chest, his thumb brushing over her hardened peak until she arched into the touch. Matthias's fingers traced lower, skimming her hip, her thigh, teasing close to where she ached but never quite touching. "Please," Celeste heard herself beg. "I need. We know what you need." Marcus lowered his head, his mouth replacing his hand on her sensitive flesh. The hot, wet suction made her cry out, her fingers tangling in his hair. Matthias used her distraction to slide lower, positioning himself between her thighs. He pushed her legs wider, exposing her completely to his gaze. So pink and perfect, already glistening for us. "Has anyone ever touched you here, Celeste?" "No, just myself." "Good." His fingers traced through her slick folds, exploring gently. "This belongs to us now. This pleasure, this response, everything you feel, all ours." He found the sensitive pearl hidden in her folds and circled it slowly. Celeste's hips bucked off the bed, overwhelmed by sensation far more intense than her own clumsy attempts. Marcus increased his attention to her chest, teeth grazing and making her gasp. "That's it," Matthias encouraged, his fingers moving in maddening patterns. "Let us hear you. Show us how good we make you feel." The pleasure built impossibly fast, tightening in her core like a coil. She was close, so close, teetering on an edge she'd only reached alone in darkness. But this was different. This was overwhelming, consuming. Too much and not enough. "I can't." She tried to close her legs, to escape the intensity. "Yes, you can." Matthias held her open effortlessly. "You're going to peak for us, little virgin, going to let us see you shatter." His fingers moved faster and Marcus bit down gently on her sensitive flesh. The combination shattered her. Celeste screamed as waves of pleasure crashed through her, stronger than anything she'd managed alone, endless and devastating. They didn't stop. Through her release and into the hypersensitivity after, they continued, touching, kissing, building her back up before she'd fully come down. "Too much," she gasped. "Never enough," Marcus countered. "We're just getting started." Part 2, 35,000 characters. Celeste's world narrowed to sensation. Marcus's clever tongue worked between her thighs while Matthias's mouth claimed hers, swallowing her desperate moans. They'd been building her pleasure for what felt like hours, bringing her to the edge again and again without letting her fall. "Please," she sobbed against Matthias's lips. "I need. I can't take any more." "You can," Marcus murmured, his breath hot against her slick folds. "And you will. We're teaching you endurance, love, teaching your body to handle more pleasure than you ever imagined possible." His tongue circled that sensitive pearl, applying just enough pressure to make her writhe. Beside her, Matthias's hand found her chest, rolling and pinching her peaked flesh until sparks of pleasure shot through her entire body. "So responsive," Matthias praised. "Every touch makes you tremble. You were made for this, Celeste. Made for us." Marcus added 2 fingers to his assault, sliding them deep inside her channel while his mouth sealed over her pearl and sucked. The dual stimulation shattered her completely. Celeste came with a scream that echoed off the stone walls, her body convulsing between them as waves of intense pleasure crashed through her. They didn't give her time to recover. Before she'd caught her breath, they were repositioning her, turning her onto her hands and knees. The silk sheets were cool beneath her palms, a stark contrast to her overheated skin. "Ready for more?" Marcus asked, his large hands spreading her thighs wider. "I don't think I can," Celeste gasped, her arms already shaking. "You can," Matthias assured her, settling in front of her. His impressive length stood proud, glistening with arousal. "And you will. Open your mouth, love. Show me what you've learned." She parted her lips obediently, and he guided himself inside. The taste was familiar now, musky and masculine, and uniquely him. She hollowed her cheeks, sucking gently as he'd taught her. Behind her, Marcus positioned himself at her entrance. The broad head of his shaft pressed against her slick opening, and despite weeks of practice, the stretch as he pushed inside was still intense. "Gods, you're tight," Marcus groaned, his fingers digging into her hips. "Every time feels like the first, so hot and perfect around me." He set a steady rhythm, each thrust driving deep enough to make her gasp around Matthias. The sensation of being filled from both ends was overwhelming, existing solely for their pleasure, caught between their powerful bodies. "That's our good girl," Matthias praised, his hand tangling in her blonde hair. "Taking us both so beautifully. You were born for this, weren't you? Born to be ours." Marcus's pace increased, his hips snapping against her rear with each powerful thrust. The angle had him hitting that spot deep inside that made stars explode behind her eyes. Between that and Matthias filling her mouth, Celeste felt herself climbing toward another release impossibly fast. "She's close," Marcus announced, his voice strained. "I can feel her tightening around me." "Then let's make it memorable." Matthias's grip on her hair tightened slightly, guiding her movements. "Come for us, Celeste. Come while we're both inside you, claiming every part of you." The command combined with Marcus's relentless thrusts pushed her over the edge. She came hard, her moan vibrating around Matthias as her channel clenched rhythmically around Marcus. The pulsing grip triggered both twins' releases. She felt Marcus flood her depths with liquid heat while Matthias filled her mouth, the taste overwhelming but not unpleasant. They collapsed together in a tangle of limbs, all three gasping for breath. Celeste felt thoroughly used in the best possible way, marked and claimed and utterly satisfied. "Perfect," Marcus murmured, pulling her against his chest while Matthias spooned behind her. "You're absolutely perfect." The weeks that followed established a pattern. During the day, Celeste performed her maid duties, moving through the estate on trembling legs. At night, she belonged to the twins completely. They taught her everything about pleasure, pushing her boundaries while keeping her safe, treasuring her in ways that made her heart ache. They taught her to ride them, controlling the pace and depth. The first time she'd straddled Marcus, sinking down onto his thick length while Matthias watched with hungry eyes, she'd felt powerful, in control, at least until they'd taught her that even in that position, they owned her pleasure completely. They taught her patience through denial, binding her spread across their massive bed and teasing her for hours. By the time they finally allowed her release, she'd been sobbing with need, her body so sensitized that the slightest touch sent shockwaves through her. They also taught her to feed them. The first time Marcus's fangs pierced her throat, Celeste tensed in fear. But the pain was brief, replaced almost immediately by a euphoric rush as he drank from her. The sensation of him drawing her life force while buried deep inside her was overwhelming, pushing her into a release that left her unconscious. She woke wrapped in silk sheets, bandaged and cared for. "Took too much," Matthias explained, guilt evident in his expression. "Your blood is intoxicating. We'll be more careful." They were. Future feedings were controlled, measured, always stopping before she grew too weak. And Celeste found she craved it, the intimacy of sharing her blood, the high that came with being consumed. 2 months into their arrangement, everything changed. Celeste was serving dinner when she noticed the tension radiating from both twins. A letter lay between them, bearing an ornate seal. "The Vampire Council has summoned us," Marcus said, his voice flat. "They're demanding we take proper mates, vampire women of suitable bloodlines." The words hit like physical blows. "I see. They're sending candidates here," Matthias continued. "We're expected to host them, court them, choose one each." "How long until they arrive?" Celeste's voice didn't shake. 1 week. The week that followed was torture. Beautiful vampire women arrived, each more stunning than the last. Lady Isadora, with platinum hair and sapphire eyes. Countess Vivienne, dark and sensual. Each perfect, each worthy. The twins were gracious hosts during the day, but at night, their lovemaking took on a desperate quality. Marcus appeared in her doorway after midnight, his eyes wild. "I need you." He took her against the wall, brutal and claiming, growling "mine" against her throat as he drank from her. The combination pushed her into a release so intense she nearly blacked out. "I hate this," he confessed afterward. "Hate entertaining them. Hate that they think they have a chance when you already own me completely." The next night, Matthias brought silk ropes and spent an hour tying her spread across her bed. Then he tortured her with pleasure until she was sobbing. "Tell me why I should give you what you want when I'm supposed to be courting proper vampire ladies," he demanded. "Because I'm yours," Celeste gasped. "Because my body knows you. Because no one else will ever make me feel like this. Truth," he thrust into her brutally. "And you're mine, no matter who they try to force on me." On the third night, both twins came together. They positioned her on hands and knees facing her small mirror. "Watch," Marcus commanded as he entered her from behind while Matthias filled her mouth. "Watch what we do to you." The dual penetration combined with seeing herself used so thoroughly pushed her into a release that left her boneless. "We're going to turn you," Marcus decided. "Tonight, we're sending those women away and making you one of us." "The transformation," Celeste whispered. 3 days of agony. "You'll survive," Matthias promised. "You're strong enough." That evening's formal dinner was elaborate. The vampire candidates competed for attention in expensive gowns. Celeste served silently, invisible. Lady Isadora cornered her in the hallway. "You reek of them. You're just a convenient receptacle. Once they take proper mates, you'll be discarded." "Perhaps," Celeste met her gaze, "but at least I'll have known their touch, their passion, their devotion. What will you have? A political arrangement and an empty bed? You dare. Release her." Matthias's voice cut through the hallway. "Now." When Isadora fled, Marcus cupped Celeste's face. "They all know now. About us." "Good," Matthias smiled. "Makes what we're about to do easier." They returned to the dining room together. Marcus stood commanding attention. "Ladies, we appreciate your presence. However, we've made our choice. Our hearts belong to another." Gasps filled the room as Celeste was called forward. "This human," Lady Catherine spat. "She won't be mortal much longer," Matthias announced. "Tonight, we begin her transformation. Tomorrow, she'll be our equal, our mate, our forever." The room erupted in fury. The vampire women shouted protests as furniture crashed. "Accept our choice or leave," Marcus commanded. "Any who remain to cause trouble will face consequences." One by one, they departed. When the last carriage disappeared, Celeste breathed. "It's done," she whispered. "No going back now." "No going back," Matthias agreed. "Are you ready?" "Yes, let's begin." They led her to their chambers, to the massive bed. "We'll make love to you first," Matthias explained. "One last time while you're human, then we'll drain you during your pleasure. It will make the transition easier." They undressed her reverently, their hands worshipping every inch. When they finally entered her together, moving in perfect synchronization, Celeste felt tears slide down her cheeks. This was goodbye to humanity. Hello to something unknown and hopefully eternal. The pleasure built impossibly high. When she was trembling on the edge, Marcus's fangs pierced her throat on one side, while Matthias struck the other. The sensation was overwhelming, pleasure and pain and euphoria as they drank deeply. The world faded. Just before darkness claimed her, blood pressed against her lips. Rich and coppery, she swallowed and liquid fire poured down her throat. Then there was only pain. Celeste woke to agony beyond comprehension. Every cell was dying, burning, being torn apart and rebuilt. She tried to scream, but strong arms held her. "We've got you," Marcus's voice, distant. "Hold on, love." Time lost meaning, endless, excruciating pain, her bones breaking and reforming, her blood burning like acid, her heart stopping, then starting with a different rhythm. The twins held her through it all. They whispered encouragement, forced more blood down her throat when the transformation faltered. On the third day, something shifted. The pain receded, replaced by tingling numbness. Celeste's eyes flickered open. The world looked different, sharper, clearer. She could see individual dust motes, could hear the twins' hearts beating, could smell their unique scents perfectly. "Celeste?" Matthias's face appeared, hope and fear warring. "Can you hear me?" She tried to respond, but her throat burned with thirst. Her gums ached, and fangs pressed against her tongue. Thirsty, she croaked. Marcus appeared with a crystal goblet filled with blood, human blood. Every instinct should have rejected it. Instead, her body surged forward desperately. The first swallow was ecstasy, rich and warm and satisfying. She drank greedily until empty. Easy, Matthias soothed. You'll make yourself sick. Celeste looked at her hands. They seemed the same, but when she flexed, she felt strength that hadn't been there. She sat up easily, muscles responding supernaturally. How do you feel? Marcus asked. Different, stronger, sharper, hungry. She met their eyes, but still me, still aware of who I am. Relief flooded their faces. Matthias pulled her into his arms. Thank the gods. We were afraid you'd wake up changed beyond recognition. Never, Celeste promised. She could feel the bond now, deeper than before. A connection thrumming in her blood, linking the three of them fundamentally. I'm yours, for eternity now. Marcus joined their embrace. The council will summon us soon. They'll test you. It won't be easy. I don't care. Let them test me. I survived transformation. I can survive political games. Matthias smiled, proud and fierce. That's our mate, strong and stubborn and fearless. Though there's one thing we should tell you, Marcus added with mischief. What? Newly turned vampires have enhanced appetites. For everything, especially physical pleasure. The next few weeks, you're going to be insatiable. Even as he said it, Celeste felt heat pooling. A hunger for the two magnificent males holding her. Her new vampire senses made her hyper-aware of their scents, their warmth, their strength. Then perhaps, she said, her voice a sultry purr she'd never managed as human, we should start addressing those appetites right now. The twins growled in unison, predatory and promising. They moved as one, laying her back, their hands and mouths worshiping her transformed body. Making love as a vampire was unlike anything as human. Every sensation magnified 100-fold. She could feel silk sheets with perfect clarity, could taste Marcus and Matthias when they kissed her, could hear their hearts racing. When they entered her, moving in synchronization, Celeste's enhanced body responded devastatingly. The pleasure was so acute it bordered on painful, building impossibly higher. Gods, you feel different, Marcus groaned. Stronger, tighter, perfect. Matthias's fangs scraped her throat. Bite me, please. I need to feel it as one of you. They struck simultaneously, piercing her throat as they moved inside her. The sensation of being drained while claimed pushed Celeste into the most intense release she'd ever experienced. She screamed their names as she shattered, her newly turned body convulsing with endless pleasure. When she came down, gasping, she felt their blood flowing into her from where she'd instinctively bitten Matthias's shoulder. The exchange completed something fundamental, a bond lasting as long as they existed. Forever, she whispered. This is forever now. Forever, Marcus agreed. You, us, eternity together. Matthias pressed a kiss to her forehead. Welcome to immortality, love. Welcome home. As Celeste drifted into contented sleep between her vampire mates, she felt only peace. The council might challenge them. Others might look down on her turned status. But none of it mattered. She'd found her place, her purpose, her eternal loves, and nothing would ever take that from her. The moonlight caught the three of them tangled together, a portrait of perfect contentment. Outside, the world continued turning, but inside the Ashford estate, time had stopped beautifully. Celeste had been reborn into darkness, but she'd never felt more alive. Forever started now, wrapped in the arms of two ancient vampires who loved her enough to defy their entire world, and that was all she'd ever need. Celeste's world narrowed to pure sensation. Marcus's clever tongue worked between her thighs while Matthias's mouth claimed hers, swallowing her desperate moans. They'd been building her pleasure for what felt like hours, bringing her to the edge again and again without letting her fall over. Please, she sobbed against Matthias's lips. I can't take any more. You can, Marcus murmured, his breath hot against her slick folds. And you will. We're teaching you endurance, love. teaching your body to handle more pleasure than you ever imagined possible. His tongue circled that sensitive pearl, applying just enough pressure to make her writhe. Beside her, Matthias's hand found her chest, rolling and pinching her peaked flesh until sparks of pleasure shot through her entire body. So responsive, Matthias praised. Every touch makes you tremble. You were made for this, Celeste. Made for us. Marcus added 2 fingers to his assault, sliding them deep inside her channel, while his mouth sealed over her pearl and sucked. The dual stimulation shattered her completely. Celeste came with a scream that echoed off the stone walls, her body convulsing between them as waves of intense pleasure crashed through her. They didn't give her time to recover. Before she'd caught her breath, they were repositioning her, turning her onto her hands and knees. The silk sheets were cool beneath her palms, a stark contrast to her overheated skin. "Ready for more?" Marcus asked, his large hands spreading her thighs wider. "I don't think I can," Celeste gasped, her arms already shaking. "You can," Matthias assured her, settling in front of her. His impressive length stood proud, glistening with arousal. "And you will. Open your mouth, love. Show me what you've learned." She parted her lips obediently, and he guided himself inside. The taste was familiar now, musky and masculine and uniquely him. She hollowed her cheeks, sucking gently as he'd taught her over the past weeks. Behind her, Marcus positioned himself at her entrance. The broad head of his shaft pressed against her slick opening, and despite their careful preparation over many nights, the stretch as he pushed inside was still intense. "Gods, you're tight," Marcus groaned, his fingers digging into her hips. "Every time feels like the first. So hot and perfect around me." He set a steady rhythm, each thrust driving deep enough to make her gasp around Matthias. The sensation of being filled from both ends was overwhelming, existing solely for their pleasure, caught between their powerful bodies. "That's our good girl," Matthias praised, his hand tangling in her blonde hair. "Taking us both so beautifully. You were born for this, weren't you? Born to be ours." Marcus's pace increased, his hips snapping against her rear with each powerful thrust. The angle had him hitting that spot deep inside that made stars explode behind her eyes. Between that and Matthias filling her mouth, Celeste felt herself climbing toward another release impossibly fast. "She's close," Marcus announced, his voice strained. "I can feel her tightening around me." "Then let's make it memorable." Matthias's grip on her hair tightened slightly, guiding her movements. "Come for us, Celeste. Come while we're both inside you, claiming every part of you." The command combined with Marcus's relentless thrusts pushed her over the edge. She came hard, her moan vibrating around Matthias as her channel clenched rhythmically around Marcus. The pulsing grip triggered both twins' releases. She felt Marcus flood her depths with liquid heat while Matthias filled her mouth, the taste overwhelming but not unpleasant. They collapsed together in a tangle of limbs, all 3 gasping for breath. Celeste felt thoroughly used in the best possible way, marked and claimed and utterly satisfied. "Perfect," Marcus murmured, pulling her against his chest while Matthias spooned behind her. "You're absolutely perfect." The weeks that followed established a delicious pattern. During the day, Celeste performed her maid duties, moving through the estate on legs that trembled from the previous night's activities. The other servants noticed her changed status immediately. Some looked at her with envy, others with pity. Most avoided her entirely. Margot cornered her in the laundry room 3 days later. "You've been claimed," she observed, noting the fresh marks blooming along Celeste's collarbone. "How do you feel?" "Alive," Celeste admitted, folding a silk sheet with practiced efficiency. "For the first time in years, I feel truly alive." "It won't last." Margot's expression was sad. "The masters tire of their toys eventually. They'll use you until the novelty fades, then move on to the next pretty thing." "Maybe," Celeste said quietly, "but at least I'll have experienced it, known what it was to be wanted completely." The evenings became her education in pleasure. The twins taught her everything, patiently and thoroughly. How to please them with her mouth, taking them deeper each night until she could swallow around them without gagging. How to ride them, controlling the pace and angle to maximize her own pleasure. How to submit completely, trusting them to push her limits while keeping her safe. They pushed her boundaries regularly. One night, they bound her hands above her head with silk ropes, leaving her spread and helpless on their bed. They teased her for hours, bringing her to the edge of release over and over without letting her peak. By the time they finally allowed her completion, Celeste was sobbing with need, her body so sensitized that the slightest touch sent sparks through her. "Beautiful," Matthias murmured, releasing her bonds to massage feeling back into her arms. "You take discipline so well, never complaining, trusting us completely." They also taught her to feed them. The first time Marcus's fangs pierced her throat, Celeste tensed in fear. But the pain was brief, replaced almost immediately by a euphoric rush as he drank from her. The sensation of him drawing her life force while buried deep inside her was overwhelming, pushing her into a release that left her unconscious. She woke wrapped in silk sheets, bandaged and cared for. "Took too much," Matthias explained, guilt evident in his expression. "Your blood is intoxicating. We'll be more careful." They were. Future feedings were controlled, measured, always stopping before she grew too weak, and Celeste found she craved it, the intimacy of sharing her blood, the high that came with being consumed. 2 months into their arrangement, everything changed. Celeste was serving dinner, moving through the familiar routine with practiced ease. The twins watched her with their usual intensity, desire always simmering in their gazes. But tonight something felt different. The air was charged with tension she couldn't identify. "You've been with us for 2 months, Marcus said as she poured his drink. 2 months of pleasure and service. Have you been happy?" "Yes, master." The title had become second nature, though they often let her use their given names in private. "Very happy." "And you understand your position here?" Matthias added. "You're our companion, our lover, but not our equal. You're human, mortal, temporary." The words stung more than they should. Celeste had known from the beginning this was temporary. The twins were immortal. She would age and die while they remained unchanged. But hearing it stated so baldly hurt. "I understand, master." "Good." Marcus stood, moving to the window. "Because we've received news from the Vampire Council. They're demanding we take proper mates, vampire mates of suitable breeding and power to secure our bloodline and political alliances." Celeste's heart dropped into her stomach. "I see. The candidates arrive next week," Matthias continued, his voice carefully neutral. "We'll be expected to choose from among them, to begin formal courtship. During that time, our relationship with you will need to be discreet. You want me to hide? We want you to be safe." Marcus turned back to face her, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked conflicted. "The vampire women coming will see you as a threat. They won't hesitate to eliminate you if they perceive you as competition." "I'm not competition." Bitterness crept into Celeste's voice. "I'm just a human servant you've been betting." "Don't." Matthias was in front of her instantly, his hand gripping her chin firmly. "Don't reduce what we have to something crude. You mean more to us than that." "Do I?" Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Because it sounds like I'm being replaced by more suitable options." "You're not being replaced," Marcus insisted, crossing back to her. "We have political obligations, duties to our house and our people. Taking vampire mates is necessary for our survival as leaders. While I'm convenient for your pleasure." Celeste pulled away from Matthias's grip. "I understand, masters. Will that be all?" She fled before they could answer, before the tears could fall, before she could beg them to choose her over duty. The week that followed was torture. Celeste watched as beautiful vampire women arrived at the estate, each more stunning than the last. They wore gowns that cost more than her yearly wages and moved with centuries of grace and confidence. They were everything she wasn't. Immortal, powerful, worthy. Lady Isadora arrived first, sweeping through the entrance hall like she owned it. Her platinum hair cascaded down her back in perfect waves, and her sapphire eyes assessed everything with calculating precision. She barely glanced at Celeste when handed her cloak, treating her like furniture. "Marcus, Matthias," she purred, extending her hands to the twins. "How delightful to finally meet you. I've heard such interesting things about your estate." Celeste watched from the shadows as the twins played their roles perfectly. Charming, attentive, giving no hint of the nights they'd spent buried deep inside their human maid. The betrayal shouldn't have stung, but it did. More arrived throughout the week. Countess Vivian from France, dark and sensual with a laugh like breaking glass. Lady Catherine from England, all proper manners hiding predatory instincts. Each one a perfect potential mate, each one making Celeste feel smaller and more disposable. During the day, she served them at elaborate meals they didn't eat, watching them flirt and compete. At night, everything changed. The twins still came to her small room in the servants' quarters, but their lovemaking took on a desperate, almost savage quality. They seemed determined to brand themselves onto her body, to make her forget everything except them. The first night after the candidates arrived, Marcus appeared in her doorway as midnight struck. His eyes were wild, stormy gray, churning with emotions she couldn't name. "I need you," he said simply, and Celeste went to him without question. He took her against the wall of her tiny room, not bothering to fully undress her. He simply pushed her skirts up and entered her with one brutal thrust that made her cry out. His pace was punishing, each stroke driving deep and hard, his fingers digging into her hips hard enough to leave marks. "Mine," he growled against her throat. "Not theirs. Mine." "Yours," Celeste gasped, her legs wrapped around his waist, taking everything he gave. "Always yours." He bit her then, fangs sinking into her throat as he pounded into her. The combination of pain and pleasure and the euphoric high of being drained pushed her into a release so intense she nearly blacked out. Marcus followed seconds later, flooding her channel as he drank deeply, marking her inside and out. When he finally pulled away, his eyes had regained some clarity. He pressed his forehead to hers, both of them breathing hard. "I hate this," he confessed. "Hate entertaining them. Hate pretending you don't exist. Hate that they think they have a chance when you already own me completely." The confession made her heart ache. "You have to choose one of them. The council demands it. The council can burn." He kissed her fiercely. "There has to be another way." The next night, Matthias came to her, and his approach was different. He brought silk ropes and spent an hour tying her to her narrow bed, positioning her spread and helpless. Then he proceeded to torture her with pleasure, his mouth and hands working her over until she was sobbing with need. "Please," she begged, "please, I need you inside me." "Do you?" His ice-blue eyes glinted with dark amusement. "Tell me why. Tell me why I should give you what you want when I'm supposed to be courting proper vampire ladies." "Because I'm yours." Celeste pulled against her bonds, desperate. "Because my body knows you. Because no one else will ever make me feel like this." "Truth." He finally positioned himself at her entrance, the thick head of his length pressing against her slick opening. "And you're mine. No matter who they try to force on me, this belongs to me." He thrust forward in one brutal stroke, filling her completely. Celeste screamed at the overwhelming sensation. Her body stretched and claimed and utterly possessed. Matthias set a relentless pace, each thrust hitting that spot deep inside that made stars explode behind her eyes. "Look at you," he murmured, his hand wrapping around her throat, not squeezing, just holding possessively. "Tied down, helpless, taking everything I give you, so perfect, so beautifully broken for us." He made her peak 3 times before allowing himself release, each one more intense than the last. By the time he untied her, Celeste could barely move, her body wrung out and trembling. "I won't marry them," Matthias said as he massaged feeling back into her wrists. "I don't care what the council threatens. I'll find a way to keep you." On the third night, both twins came together, and what followed was the most intense encounter they'd ever shared. They arrived just before dawn, when the other servants were still asleep. Marcus locked her door, while Matthias began undressing her with deliberate slowness, his hands worshipping every inch of skin he revealed. "We've been thinking," Marcus said, settling into her only chair to watch, "about what we want, what we need. And we've realized something," Matthias continued, his mouth tracing the curve of her shoulder. "We can't share you with obligation, can't pretend during the day and claim you at night. It's tearing us apart. So we're going to remind you who you belong to, Marcus stood, joining his brother. "Going to mark you so thoroughly that every vampire woman in this estate will smell us on you. Will know you're claimed." They positioned her on the bed on her hands and knees, facing the small mirror on her wall. Marcus knelt behind her while Matthias settled in front, their bodies caging hers. "Watch," Marcus commanded, his hands spreading her thighs wider. "Watch what we do to you. See how perfectly you take us." He entered her from behind in one smooth thrust while Matthias guided himself into her mouth. The dual penetration was overwhelming, being filled from both ends, caught between their powerful bodies. In the mirror, she could see herself, could see how wanton she looked with them using her. They moved in perfect synchronization, Marcus's hips snapping forward as Matthias withdrew, creating a rhythm that had her body singing with pleasure. The image in the mirror was obscene and beautiful, 3 bodies moving as one, sweat-slicked and desperate. "That's it," Matthias praised, his fingers tangling in her hair. "Take us both. Show us how good you are at pleasing your masters." Marcus's hand slid around her hip, finding that sensitive pearl between her thighs. He rubbed in tight circles while maintaining his punishing pace, driving her higher and higher. "You're going to peak for us," he commanded, "going to come while we're both inside you, claiming every part of you." The combination of sensations was too much. Celeste shattered with a muffled scream around Matthias, her body convulsing between them. The rhythmic clenching of her channel triggered Marcus's release, and she felt him flood her depths with liquid heat. Matthias followed moments later, his essence spilling down her throat as she swallowed instinctively. They collapsed in a tangle of limbs, the narrow bed barely containing all 3 of them. Celeste's body hummed with satisfaction, marked inside and out by the twins she loved. "We're going to turn you," Marcus said suddenly, his voice firm with decision. "Tonight, after the formal dinner, we're going to send those women away and make you one of us." "What?" Celeste's heart stuttered. "You can't. The council will accept it or face our wrath," Matthias replied. "We've made our choice. You're ours, and we're going to make it permanent." Hope and fear warred in Celeste's chest. "The transformation? I've heard stories. 3 days of agony. Most humans don't survive." "You'll survive." Marcus's hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his storm-gray eyes. "You're strong enough, and we'll be with you every moment. We won't let you fail. But even if I survive, I might change, might not want this anymore. Then we'll let you go," Matthias said softly. "But I don't believe that will happen. What we have, it's deeper than humanity or vampirism. It's souls recognizing their match." Celeste looked between them, seeing determination and love and fierce possession in their expressions. The choice should have been harder, should have required more thought. But she'd known since that first night what she wanted. "Do it," she whispered. "Turn me. Make me yours forever." The formal dinner that evening was an elaborate affair. The vampire candidates wore their finest gowns, each trying to outshine the others. They competed for the twins' attention with carefully crafted conversation and meaningful glances. Celeste served silently, moving through the dining room like a ghost. She could smell herself on the twins. Their scent mingled with hers in a way that made her hyper-aware of what they'd shared. Several of the vampire women noticed too, their delicate noses wrinkling slightly when they got too close to Marcus or Matthias. Lady Isadora was particularly astute. She cornered Celeste in the hallway when she went to fetch more wine. "You reek of them," she said coldly. "How long have they been using you as their plaything?" Celeste kept her eyes down. "I don't know what you mean, my lady." "Don't play coy. I can smell their essence on you. In you." Isadora's hand shot out, gripping Celeste's chin and forcing her head up. "You're just a convenient receptacle for their needs. Once they take proper mates, you'll be discarded like the trash you are." "Perhaps," Celeste met her gaze steadily, "but at least I'll have known their touch, their passion, their devotion. What will you have? A political arrangement and an empty bed?" Isadora's eyes flashed dangerously. "You dare! Release her." Matthias's voice cut through the hallway like a whip. He stood at the end of the corridor, his expression colder than Celeste had ever seen. "Now." Isadora dropped her hand immediately. "I was merely putting the help in her place. The help, as you call her, is under our protection." Marcus appeared beside his brother, equally furious. Touch her again and lose your hand. Is that clear? The vampire woman's face paled. My lords, I meant no offense. Yet you gave it anyway. Matthias gestured dismissively. Return to the dining room. We'll address this later. When Isadora had fled, the twins turned to Celeste. Marcus's hand cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. Are you all right? Yes. She leaned into his touch. But they all know now. About us. Good. Matthias's smile was sharp. Makes what we're about to do easier. They returned to the dining room together, the twins flanking Celeste in a clear display of possession. The assembled vampire women watched with growing confusion and anger as they took their seats. Marcus stood, commanding immediate attention. Ladies, we appreciate your presence here. Each of you is remarkable in your own right. However, Matthias continued, we've made our choice. Our hearts and our house belong to another. Gasps and outraged murmurs filled the room. Countess Vivienne rose to her feet. This is unprecedented. The council specifically demanded you choose from among suitable candidates. And we have chosen, Marcus replied calmly. Celeste, approach. Celeste's legs shook as she moved to stand between them. Every vampire eye in the room bore into her with varying degrees of hatred and disbelief. This human, Lady Catherine's voice dripped with disdain. You would choose a mortal servant over any of us? She won't be mortal much longer, Matthias announced. Tonight, we begin her transformation. Tomorrow she'll be our equal, our mate, our forever. The room erupted in chaos. Vampire women shouted protests and threats. Furniture crashed as some stood violently. Through it all, the twins remained calm, their hands resting protectively on Celeste's shoulders. This is your final warning. Marcus's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Accept our choice or leave our territory. Any who remain to cause trouble will face consequences. One by one, the vampire candidates departed, their fury palpable. Only when the last carriage had disappeared into the night did Celeste allow herself to breathe. It's done, she whispered. No going back now. No going back, Matthias agreed. Are you ready? Celeste looked at the two vampires who'd claimed her heart, her body, her future. Yes, let's begin. They led her to their chambers, to the massive bed that had been the site of so much pleasure. Tonight, it would become her birthing place, into a new existence. We'll make love to you first, Matthias explained, his hands already working the laces of her dress. One last time while you're still human. Then we'll drain you while you're in the heights of pleasure. It will make the transition slightly easier. They undressed her slowly, reverently, as if unwrapping something precious. Their hands and mouths worshipped every inch of her skin, building her arousal with practiced skill. When they finally entered her together, moving in perfect synchronization, Celeste felt tears slide down her cheeks. This was goodbye to her humanity. Hello to something unknown and terrifying, and hopefully eternal. The pleasure built impossibly high as they moved inside her, their bodies knowing exactly how to drive her mad. When she was on the edge, trembling and desperate, Marcus's fangs pierced her throat on one side, while Matthias struck the other. The sensation was overwhelming, pleasure and pain and a euphoric high as they drank deeply, pulling her life force into themselves. The world started to fade, growing dim around the edges. Just before darkness claimed her, she felt something press against her lips. Blood, rich and coppery, flooding her mouth. She swallowed instinctively, and liquid fire poured down her throat. Then there was only pain. Celeste woke to agony beyond comprehension. Every cell in her body was dying, burning, being torn apart and rebuilt. She tried to scream, but no sound emerged. Tried to thrash, but strong arms held her immobile. We've got you, Marcus's voice, distant through the roaring in her ears. Hold on, love, just hold on. Time lost meaning. There was only endless, excruciating pain. Her bones felt like they were breaking and reforming. Her blood burned like acid in her veins. Her heart stuttered and stopped, then started again with a different rhythm. Through it all, the twins held her. They whispered encouragement, wiped away tears and blood, forced more of their blood down her throat when the transformation started to falter. On the third day, something shifted. The pain began to recede, replaced by a tingling numbness. Celeste's eyes flickered open, and the world looked different, sharper, clearer. She could see individual dust motes floating in beams of moonlight, could hear the twins' hearts beating steady and strong, could smell their unique scents with perfect clarity. Celeste? Matthias's face appeared above her, hope and fear warring in his expression. "Can you hear me?" She tried to respond, but her throat was parched, burning with a thirst she'd never experienced. Her gums ached, and when she ran her tongue over her teeth, she felt sharp points where canines should be. Fangs. She had fangs. "Thirsty," she managed to croak. Marcus was there instantly, with a crystal goblet filled with something dark and red. Blood, human blood from their stores. Every instinct screamed for her to reject it, to be repulsed. Instead, her body surged forward, desperate for it. The first swallow was ecstasy, rich and warm and satisfying in ways food had never been. She drank greedily until the goblet was empty, and the burning thirst finally eased. "Easy," Matthias soothed, taking the empty vessel. "You'll make yourself sick. Your body needs time to adjust." Celeste looked at her hands. They seemed the same, but when she flexed her fingers, she felt strength that definitely hadn't been there before. She sat up easily, muscles responding with supernatural efficiency. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. "Different," Celeste replied honestly. "Stronger, sharper, hungry in ways I've never been before." She met their eyes. "But still me, still aware of who I am, what I chose." Relief flooded both their faces. Matthias pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "Thank the gods," he breathed. "We were so afraid you'd wake up changed beyond recognition, that we'd lose you even though you survived." "Never," Celeste promised. She could feel the bond between them now, something deeper than before, a connection that thrummed in her blood, linking the three of them on a fundamental level. "I'm yours, for eternity now." Marcus joined their embrace, the three of them tangled together. "The council will summon us soon," he warned. "They'll want to test you, to see if you're worthy despite your human origins. It won't be easy." "I don't care," Celeste said firmly. "Let them test me. I survived 3 days of transformation. I can survive whatever political games they want to play." Matthias smiled, proud and fierce. "That's our mate, strong and stubborn and absolutely fearless. Though there is one thing we should probably tell you," Marcus added, a hint of mischief in his expression. "What?" "Newly turned vampires have enhanced appetites. For everything. Food, blood, and especially physical pleasure. The next few weeks, you're going to be insatiable." Even as he said it, Celeste felt heat pooling low in her belly. A hunger that had nothing to do with blood and everything to do with the two magnificent males holding her. Her new vampire senses made her hyper-aware of their scents, their warmth, the lean strength of their bodies. "Then perhaps," she said, her voice dropping to a sultry purr she'd never managed as a human, "we should start addressing those appetites right now." The twins growled in unison, a predatory sound that sent shivers of anticipation through her. They moved as one, laying her back on the bed, their hands and mouths worshiping her newly transformed body. Making love as a vampire was unlike anything she'd experienced as a human. Every sensation was magnified 100-fold. She could feel the slide of silk sheets against her skin with perfect clarity. Could taste Marcus and Matthias on her tongue when they kissed her. Could hear their hearts racing in time with hers. When they entered her, moving in perfect synchronization, Celeste's enhanced body responded with devastating intensity. The pleasure was so acute it bordered on painful, building impossibly higher with each thrust. "Gods, you feel different," Marcus groaned. "Stronger, tighter, perfect." Matthias's fangs scraped her throat, and the threat of it made her channel clench around them both. "Bite me," she begged. "Please, I need to feel it now, as one of you." They struck simultaneously, their fangs piercing her throat as they moved inside her. The sensation of being drained while being thoroughly claimed pushed Celeste into the most intense release she'd ever experienced. She screamed their names as she shattered, her newly turned body convulsing with pleasure that seemed endless. When she finally came down, gasping and trembling, she felt their blood flowing into her from where she'd instinctively bitten Matthias's shoulder. The exchange completed something fundamental between them, a bond that would last as long as they all existed. "Forever," she whispered against Matthias's skin. "This is forever now." "Forever," Marcus agreed, pulling her close. "You, us, eternity stretching ahead, together." Matthias pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Welcome to immortality, love. Welcome home." As Celeste drifted into contented sleep between her two vampire mates, she felt nothing but peace. The council might challenge them. Other vampires might look down on her turned status. But none of it mattered. She'd found her place, her purpose, her eternal loves. And nothing in this world or the next would ever take that from her. The moonlight streaming through the windows caught the three of them tangled together, a portrait of perfect contentment. Outside, the world continued its endless turning, but inside the master's chambers of the Ashford estate, time had stopped in the best possible way. Celeste had been reborn into darkness, but she'd never felt more alive. Forever started now, wrapped in the arms of two ancient vampires who loved her enough to defy their entire world, and that was all she'd ever need. The end.